नमस्कार, मैं संजीव Mehta हूँ, FICCI का president.
Hindustan Unilever.
But नाटक से होते हुए you cannot have coffee. How are other people in the country going to have coffee if you don't have
मेरा
coffee?
वीकनेस क्या है, मैं बिना शक्कर नहीं पीता. That's not इसलिए.
But you don't have to remove it. You're asking me to remove it. Psychological.
आप ये पूछना नहीं चाहिए, आप पहन के रखे मुझे क्यों बोल रहे हैं?
Said for your safety, sir.
How are your volumes compared to international volumes? You're saying we are 13%. In a way, the potential for the country, if I can say so, is for the capital.
More discerning, more demanding,
Much.
and there will be a shake-up. Product superiority.
Our Hon'ble Ministers on the days, Jyotiraditya distinguished please present on the days and not the days. Excellencies, our many esteemed guest speakers, delegates, participants, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to all of you to the Indian Minerals and Metals Industry Today Conference. And ladies and gentlemen, as we continue to celebrate our Amrit Mahotsav, Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav, and in fact now stepping into the much defining and decisive Amrit Kaal, wherein our collective vision and mission is going to be leading domestic indigenous production of the metals and minerals in the country so as to cater to our own domestic demand and the needs to be globally competitive, to bring about greater cost and operation efficiency and to become Atmanirbhar. And at the same time as we do so, it is more towards building a more sustainable and more responsible and being more productive in nature. So,
Thank you.
environmentally, socially responsible and more aware manner. Let us begin this conference as per our Indian traditions and customs by lighting the ceremonial lamp. And I want to request Shri Sanjiv, President FICCI, who represents the voice of the industry, and also in his personal capacity as the leading industrialist, the CEO and the Managing Director of one of the largest
Joshi, Honorable Minister of Mines, Coal and Parliamentary Affairs, Shri Jyotiraditya, Scindia, Honorable Minister of Civil Aviation and Sea, Shri Sumit, CMD, NMDC Limited, Mr. D.K. Mohanty, Director Production, NMDC Limited. Ladies and gentlemen, Namaskar and good morning. On behalf of FICCI, I'm delighted to welcome all of you to this international conference on Indian minerals and metals industry with the theme Transition Towards 2030 and Vision 2047. It is heartening to see that today's forum has brought together delegates and speakers from all the facets of the industry to discuss and deliberate on growth and development of the industry aligned with our national priorities. Minerals and metals play a key role in industrialization of an economy. India is no exception. The mining industry contributes approximately 2% to India's GDP. And every 1% incremental growth of mining and quarrying has a corresponding effect of 1.2 to 1.4% in incremental growth rate of industrial production, which in turn could contribute to about 0.3% to India's GDP growth rate. Considering the availability of mineral wealth in India and massive end-use opportunities from sectors like infrastructure development and construction, it needs no gainsaying that mining is an important sector and with huge potential. With the initiatives like Gati Shakti, Bharatmala, Sagarmala, DFC, railway expansion amongst many others, metals like steel and aluminium and products like cement should witness demand-led growth and consequently the The demand for minerals like iron ore, bauxite, limestone and others will remain at a heightened level for years to come. Looking at steel alone, as per the various stakeholders' consultation held for Vision 2047, the industry is looking at tripling production capacity to approximately 500 million tons by 2047, quadrupling steel production to approximately 425 million tons, and tripling the per capita steel consumption to approximately 225 metric tons by 2047. Aligned to the targets envisaged, the iron ore requirement for 425 metric tons of steel production would be around 680 to 720 million tons, and coking coal approximately 350 million tons, giving huge impetus to the mining activities in the country. Non-ferrous metals, due to their inherent characteristics like excellent thermal and electrical conductivity, high recyclability, high strength-to-weight ratios, will form the backbone of a growing economy and contribute to the development of New India. The non-ferrous metals industry is also witnessing a big upward shift on consumption front. The end users are emerging beyond the traditional sectors like electricals, automotive and construction to emerging applications like defense, aerospace, healthcare, maritime, etc. With transition to digital economy, several new age applications such as EVs will drive the need for commodities like lithium, titanium, rare earth elements, deep-seated minerals, among others. It is also vital for our country to create a strategy for critical minerals and rare earth security. Whilst there are massive opportunities in the growth journey ahead, there are also challenges that need resolution to ensure that we achieve the envisaged outcomes. The government has taken numerous initiatives for reducing total quantum of taxes and levies on mining industry from 60 to 65% to 45 to 50%. However, we believe this is still very high when compared to other mineral-rich countries where it is approximately 30%. Also, when we look at things from the lens of logistics, with 1 to 4 ratio for logistics requirements, the targets envisaged for steel industry by 2047 would entail movement of materials of nearly 1,700 million tons per annum, including finished goods and raw materials. At present, India's supply chain and logistics costs are 400 to 500 bps higher as a percentage of GDP when compared with our peer group countries. Reducing the supply chain and logistics costs by improving the infrastructure and enhancing efficiencies in the entire value chain would be essential to make our industries globally competitive. Minerals and metals industry is cognizant of its responsibility towards the nation to help achieve the COP26 target of net zero by 2070. Industry is increasingly deploying clean technologies, driving towards sustainability and decarbonization. We are acutely conscious that there is a big road ahead for us. The industry is targeted as a carbon emitter, but it has resolved to reduce the carbon emissions aligned with the net zero targets using modern technologies. I'm confident that the discussions over the 2 days will help define a roadmap for driving requisite growth in this important sector for our economy. I take this opportunity to also convey my thanks to our co-organizers, NMDC, for providing FICCI an opportunity to co-host this event. I would once again like to thank Honorable Minister Shri Pralhad Joshi ji and Shri Jyotiraditya Scindia ji, the other dignitaries on the dais, the session speakers, and eminent participants and stakeholders in the conference. Thank you. Jai Hind.
Thanks, sir, for setting the tone in the context of the summit, as you highlighted the opportunities and the challenges which are there, and also the key drivers which will help us transition towards the 2030 and 2047 vision. The country steel, iron ore, sponge, pellets, diamonds, and also professional experience in manpower, succession planning, training, and development. I would like to invite Shri Sumit, the Chairman and Managing Director of NMDC Limited, and the Chair of the FICCI Mining Committee for his details.
A very good morning to all of you. It's a matter of immense joy and pleasure for me to welcome you all to this conference on Indian mineral and metal industry with a theme of transition towards 2030 and 2047. I would like to extend my heartfelt gratitude to our Chief Guest, Sri Pralhad Joshi ji, Honorable Minister of Mines, Coal and Parliamentary Affairs, Government of India. Our guest of honor, Sri Jyotiraditya Scindia, Honorable Minister of Civil Aviation and Steel, Government of India. Sri Sanjiv Mehta, Chairman, President, FICCI, and dignitaries, ladies and gentlemen, join us for this program. And it's very exciting to see all the major stakeholders of the mineral and metal industries, including representatives from the mineral states of not just India, but all around the world present here. The overwhelming response clearly indicates the benefits that this conference will bring to not only the domestic players, but also the international stakeholders. A week ago, India completed 75 glorious years of its independence and celebrated Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav. As such, we dedicate this conference to the people of our nation who have witnessed India's evolutionary journey of development and progress and its transition towards a new and a completely Atmanirbhar Bharat. The mineral and metal industry plays a critical role in meeting the increasing demands of a growing nation. For an emerging economy like us, which is expected to grow by 7 to 8% in the years to come, factors like urbanization, infrastructure development, automotive production, and demand for consumer durables emerge as major determinants of the burgeoning demand for metals and minerals in the decades ahead. To keep pace with the rapid modernization of the country, it is expected that there will be a tremendous demand for minerals and metals, especially from the infrastructure and the manufacturing sector. You would all agree that iron and steel is probably the commodity that will be creating one of the largest incremental demands in terms of sheer volume and magnitude of raw material. Iron ore, coal, limestone, bromide, power. India is already the second largest producer and consumer of steel in the world. The Government of India has already envisioned this in the National Steel Policy that aims to increase per capita consumption of steel to 158 kg while aiming to augment steel production to 300 million tons by 2030 and increase it further beyond. Steel is one of the most important products of the modern world and is of strategic importance to any industrial nation. The steel industry undeniably is a major industrial sector which plays a fundamental role in the economic development of any nation. The Indian steel industry has made significant contribution to the all-round economic development of India. In this context, it fills me with sense of pride to inform you that NMDC is at the forefront of iron ore production in India. In the last financial year, the total production of iron ore was more than 42 million tons, which is the highest among all the producers and miners in India. I feel proud to share that despite being a very challenging year with the second and third wave of COVID threatening to raise all shoots of economic recovery, our team has excelled in production and sales. The vision of NMDC echoes the vision of the National Steel Policy as it aims to augment annual production of iron ore to 67 million tons by 2025 and 100 million tons by 2030. To achieve the same, we continue to aggressively pursue our initiatives to augment capacity and upgrade operations across all our mines with state-of-the-art technology and other digitization initiatives. We also have an Australian subsidiary, Legacy Iron Ore, which has acquired multiple mining elements of various minerals, including magnetite, gold, base metals, which are at different stages of exploration. Going forward, we intend to develop lithium, nickel, and cobalt, etc., which are of key importance to the country. Our company's social capital is built on decades invested in community engagement, building of infrastructure in health and education, and contribution to essential developmental needs of our host community. As part of our sustainability practice, NMDC also conducts carbon footprint studies, water audits, and mining audits. I am hopeful that the deliberations that we will be having today and tomorrow will provide useful insights about the key growth drivers of the mining and metal industry. It will also pave the way for the development of a roadmap for the coming 25 years till 2047, while also outlining the major drivers and challenges. I would like to call upon all industry bodies and industry leaders present here to actively participate in the conference and provide a valuable insight which will have positive bearing on the accelerated growth of these industries in the decade ahead. Through this platform, I would also like to applaud the government for taking firm measures to incentivize investments into India and supporting the mining and metal industry. These efforts can be seen in the fact that India has been steadily rising over the last few years. In the latest ease of doing business rankings released by the World Bank, we placed at 67. Also, as CMD NMDC and Chair of the Mining Committee, I would like to applaud the Government of India for deliberating and ushering various reforms in the Indian mining sector. These reforms will play a fundamental role in enhancing the mining sector's contribution to employment and GDP of the country. As such, I am aware that Indian minerals and metal industry would become the flag bearers of growth and development of the nation accomplishing the Vision 2047.
Thanks for sharing your thoughts on how the industry is going to be performing and growing in the coming years with the contribution of the industry and also the various reforms being taken by the government and as we contribute to the national economy and GDP. And now, ladies and gentlemen, we have the release of the conference souvenir. I would like to request our honorable ministers to kindly release the May I first request Jyotiraditya, our Honorable Minister of Civil Aviation and Steam, please address the House.
Seated on the dais with me, my senior colleague in Parliament and the Cabinet, Hon'ble Pralhad Joshi, Minister of Mines. Seated on the dais with us, CMD of NMDC, Mr. Sumit, President of FICCI, Sanjiv Mehta, Director of Production NMDC, DK Mohanty Sahib, diplomats in the dais, senior members of industry both from the mines and minerals sector as well as the steel sector, ladies and gentlemen. I must start with a comment that it is indeed refreshing to see a person from the FMCG sector talking about the mines and minerals and steel sector that we've seen in the form of Sanjiv Mehta. Shows the true diversity of India's corporate sector and the fact that he waxed so eloquent about our sector shows the grit and determination in his new avatar as the President of FICCI that he takes on for the whole of industry in India to further our growth rate in the years to come. So we are in the month of August. And the month of August has huge portents for us. It's a very auspicious month. The month that we have this year celebrated our Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav. 75 years of attaining independence. 75 years of both growth and glory. 75 years of India seeking her rightful place in the comity of nations. And as we celebrate her journey, and as we celebrate our journey in that quest, we must also take the pledge for the onward journey from Amrit Kal to Shatabdi Kal, the next 25 years that must herald India's emergence as a superpower on the world stage. India's emergence as a healing power on the world stage. India's emergence as both a hard economic power and in her true spirit, her soft power across the world. And as we take that pledge today, that pledge of an Atmanirbhar Bharat as coined by our Prime Minister, a self-reliant India, an India that stands on her strength. As we take that pledge today, we must deliberate on the future of our sectors to align with that vision, the vision of India at 2047 and the vision of India at 100 from her journey from today of India at 75. And as we walk down that path, ladies and gentlemen, we must reflect on the recent past. The last 8 years that have seen a tectonic shift in the way that government conducts itself, in the way that government commits itself, in the way that government aligns itself, in the way that government today works as a partner with all of you, with the common goal of making sure that India's economic power grows forward from here till our destined future. And in the last 8 years, especially in our sector, we have seen unprecedented, transformative reforms take place. And these reforms have created sustainable opportunities for new investments, both in the mining sector, in the metal sector, in the steel sector, in the infrastructure sector. And the focus of these reforms has been to unleash our indomitable spirit, focusing really on 3 sectors. The first, increasing mineral production and time-based operationalization of our mines. The second, increasing employment through increased investment in our sectors. And the third, through that new investment, through that new employment, really increasing production in all our sectors. My esteemed senior colleague will talk to us about mines and minerals. But a derivative from the mines and minerals sector is steel. And steel today across the world is the primary factor which results both in economic growth, capital growth, and infrastructure growth. So it would be not an exaggeration to say that steel forms the fundamental foundation based on which the vertical skyscrapers of an industrial nation form themselves in the years to come. And therefore our targeted policy and focus also has been to turn India from just another player in the steel sector to becoming a force to reckon with within the steel sector. And if you look at our track record over this one capsule of our journey in the last 75 years, the last 8 years, the transformation that has taken place within the steel sector, I'd just like to put some data points across to you. The first, we have moved from becoming a net importer of steel to becoming a net exporter of steel. That for an industrializing nation, that for a developed nation, is a huge paradigm shift. It is a key inflection point and augurs well both, on the one hand for the production of steel and on the other hand for the consumption of steel. The reason why India is different from all our neighbors, from all the tigers, from all the dragons, is that we are fundamentally not only an exporting nation. Comes the theory of competitive and comparative advantage to be able to find our place in the international market. And so the Rubicon has shifted. from a net importer to a net exporter. On another dimension, if you look at the per capita consumption of steel, from a low of 57.8 kgs in 13-14 against the global average of 225 kgs, in just 8 years, we have increased by 50% to 78 kgs per person against that global average. And as Sanjiv said in his opening remarks, we are going to grow from 77, tripling it, and attaining the world average of 220 by the year 2047. That is our past, this is our present, and that is our future. The third statistic, from a production capacity capability of close to 102 million tons, in a span of just 7 to 8 years, we have increased capacity to about 154 million tons. That's a 50% jump. And our intention is that by 2030, this capacity of 154 million tons must grow to 300 million tons by the year 2030. On a production level basis, assuming a capacity utilization of 80%, from a base of 80 million tons production in 13-14, we are today producing 121 million tons. Again, a jump of 50%. And so across all 4 parameters, the Indian steel industry has not only set a firm footing, but today we have moved from being the 4th largest producer of steel in the world to, ladies and gentlemen, becoming the 2nd largest producer of steel in the world. Leadership of Prime Minister Narendra Modi. That is the thought that brings together hitherto myriad, varied, unconnected strands together to produce the capability of a nation, the capability of 130 crore people. And I am very confident that even though the number 1 nation is far beyond us in terms of the producer of steel, there will come a day when India will become the number 1 producer of steel in the world in the days to come. So therefore, our national steel policy, enshrined in 2017, focuses on 5 fundamental precepts. The first is there must be a development of the MSME sector along with the big integrated steel plants. There is the ISPs, but as important as the ISPs are the SSIs, the secondary steel industry. And therefore the MSME sector, which is the bulwark of economic development, which I learnt in my earlier avatar as Minister of Commerce and Industry, is fundamental to the growth of the economy in India. So the first precept is growth of the MSME sector. The second is raw material security. Without the gentlemen on the dais, except for Sanjiv Mehta ji, of course, there would be no steel industry. And therefore, raw material security is paramount to be able to attain those lofty goals that we have set for ourselves. The third is enhancing R&D. It is only through enhanced R&D that you are going to see tectonic shifts in capabilities of production, new technology, meeting the environmental goals. The fourth is reduction of import dependency, both on finished products as well as raw materials. And the fifth is efficient cost of production. And therefore our focus today is on self-reliance, both in production and developing globally economic steel manufacturing capabilities across the board by cost-efficient production and adequate availability of raw material. The Ministry of Steel is in touch with all the related ministries that are our primary customers, whether it be the railways, defense, petroleum and natural gas, housing, my other ministries, civil aviation, to be able to increase the uptake and the demand for steel in the days to come. But while we look at the demand scenario, the production scenario and the capability scenario, it's also extremely important that we harness the potential of technology. Over the next 25 years, there's going to be a huge shift in the ways we produce steel, in the ways that we market steel, and in the ways that we consume steel. And therefore, the government has put a specific effort not only in producing more, but also in producing top quality steel. And here I'd like to leave an idea with you that while we look at branding through our companies, whether it be NMDC, whether it be Coal India, whether it be Hindustan Lever, we must also look at branding the mother brand, which is made in India. And that mother brand must be associated with the highest quality of product. And therefore, currently, my ministry and I are cogitating, along with industry, in terms of how we are going to architect the branding of Made in India steel, along with our steel producers, quality steel that are produced across the country. The government has also put in place the DMI and SP policy, the domestically made Indian steel products policy, to ensure that domestically made steel is the one that is chosen for all government tenders. Recently, we've also put in place a PLI scheme, a performance-linked incentive scheme for specialty steel. Never before has a policy of such large outlays, with such large ambitious outcomes, been put in place by any government. An outlay of 6,222 crores on a single PLI scheme, that too for specialty steel, that will hopefully bring in place an additional 25 million tons of capacity, auguring an investment of 40,000 crores, creating 5.28 lakh jobs, of which approximately 60,000 will be direct jobs. That is the ambitiousness of Prime Minister Narendra Modi to create a new architecture for India, especially within the steel sector. So along with the PLI scheme, we are also looking at promoting coated and plated steel products, looking at high resistance steel, alloy steel products, which are going to be extremely beneficial for the downstream sectors. The Indian steel industry, I certainly believe, has a huge potential, especially keeping in mind the government's ambitious infrastructure plan and capex plan along with Gati Shakti. And accordingly, along with this capex planning and expansion plan, as we walk down that path, it's also extremely important to keep in mind the sustainability of production, because we are fiduciary responsible stakeholders for society and the 130 crore people in our country at large. I must use this opportunity to thank all our steel producers who during the second round of COVID actually curtailed their production so that they could ensure that the excess gaseous oxygen was converted into liquid oxygen that would be available to our COVID patients across the length and breadth of our country. This is the concept of Bharatata, our Indianness, that really pervades through our bloodstream across the length and breadth of India. In 2015, we established the district mineral foundations that today are spread across the 622 districts of India to ensure that we take care of the people and the areas that are affected by mining related activities. And through this foundation, we have disbursed almost 33,000 crores to look after the people's interests in those areas. We must also stress on the gradual decarbonization of our sector. Today, our sector contributes globally 7 to 9% of CO2 emissions. We are known, unfortunately, as the quote unquote hardest to abate sector. Within India, we produce carbon emissions of close to 2.55 tons per ton of crude steel produced, compared to the global average of 1.85. And I think it's about time that we commit ourselves to reducing our carbon footprint, reducing our carbon emissions by a minimum of 30 to 40% by the year 2030. Now, in order to be able to do that, we need a plan. We need a strategy. And I believe that this plan and this strategy must be based on three fundamental precepts. The first is carbon minimization. The second is carbon avoidance. And the third is carbon capture and utilization. And under CCU, carbon capture and utilization, comes the adoption of new technologies, such as the production of various chemicals and fuels from captured carbon dioxide, such as methanol and bioethanol. We must also pursue a long-term carbon decarbonization target. And I believe that we must look at alternative forms of steel making, such as making steel from steel scrap, such as the example that we have seen of the 6-lane highway that was built with steel slag in Surat in Gujarat, the first of its kind in the world. And that happens only in India, made in India, ladies and gentlemen. We are the only country that produces coal gasification based iron and steel in the world. And this technology can replace coking coal. Co-injection of natural gas, CBM, syngas, coke ovens are another way of a partial replacement of coke. So as a responsible stakeholder, we must also chart our path to lowering carbon emissions in the days to come. As far as raw material security is concerned, we have the capacity of almost 34 billion tons of coke in our country. But still 85% of our coking coal is imported. We must increase our coking coal production capacity from 58 million tons currently to almost 139 million tons. In the case of iron ore, we have enough of production in our country. But the requirement of iron ore will also grow to almost 437 million tons by 2030. Of this, ISPs will demand almost 195 million tons. The third bugbear that we need to look at is the issue of logistics. Today, almost 3 to 4 tons of material has to be transported for each ton of steel that is produced. And therefore, we need to look for alternatives for reducing logistics costs, such as slurry pipelines and conveyors. I was talking to our Minister, Pralhad, Joshi, that we must look at innovative ways of also using our waterways to transport steel as well as raw material. And therefore, looking forward, ladies and gentlemen, the possibility of use of drones, which the mining ministry is already adopting, both for mining exploration and mining surveillance. We must look at the issue of carbon neutrality. We must look at the issue of adopting advanced new technologies, such as artificial intelligence, such as the Internet of Things. And I am quite confident that this two-day conference will discuss all of these and more topics. But what must emerge from this? जो निचोड़ निकलनी चाहिए इस विचार विमर्श, इस मंथन से, जो अमृत निकलना चाहिए अमृत काल के समय, we must come up with the key milestones that will be the drivers for our industries in the days to come. And along with that, the regulatory support that you require from us, because we must behave as partners in your progress, not as regulators, but as facilitators, to make sure that we create a win-win, not only for you, but for Mother India in the days to come. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you, Honourable Minister, sir, who said and how the transformative reforms are generating sustainable opportunities in the sector, making India as a part of it in the steel sector. Also, thanking you, sir, for your very suggestions and recommendations as we move forward, moving and transitioning towards the 2030 and 2047 vision. And now, ladies and gentlemen, we'd like to request our Honourable Minister, Shri Pralhad Joshi, the Honourable Minister of Mines, Food and Parliamentary Affairs.
My dearest friend and Minister for Steel and Civil Aviation, Shri Jyotiraditya Scindia, Shri Sumit, CMD NMDC, Shri Sanjiv Mehta, FICCI President, DK Mohanty, and all other attendees, invitees, and the expert speakers who have arrived here for having detailed discussion in coming 2 days, to have the further detailed discussion, एक अच्छा सा चिंतन करके, तो मुझे पूरा विश्वास है कि जरूर अमृत निकल के आएगा। ये मेरा सोच के साथ मैं आपके सामने कुछ चीज रखना चाहता हूँ। It is a very joyous moment that this is happening with all eminent people of the sector participating here when India is celebrating its 75th year of India's independence. At the very outset, I would like to tell you, जैसे श्री सिंधिया जी ने जिक्र किया, कोल गैसिफिकेशन के बारे में भी हमको इधर चर्चा करना चाहिए। Recently we have approved the policy, जो रेवेन्यू शेयरिंग मॉडल हमने जो अपनाया है, उसमें 50% डिस्काउंट देने का निर्णय हमने कर लिया है और कई लोगों को ऑलरेडी लाभ पहुंचना शुरू भी हो गया है। लास्ट मंथ वी हैव अप्रूव्ड इट and before that it was 50%. Demand of this sector was that we should go for the 50%. We have made it 50% because we know our coal का जो ash content है वो comparatively ज़्यादा है। तो quality का cooking coal का जो issue है, cooking coal का भी हम ऑप्शन में लगाया है। commercial coal mining, मैं other days in some coal conference I was telling, when I started talking about the commercial coal mining, then people used to advise me, commercial coal mining करके बात मत करो, स्ट्राइक वगैरह हो जाएगा और जो प्रोडक्शन है वो भी बंद हो जाएगा। लेकिन मैं आज आपको कहना चाहता हूँ, 46 commercial coal blocks have been auctioned and some of them have started the production. And this year we will end up with at least between 5 to 10 million ton production. We will get it from the commercial coal mining, which is a very good achievement. And by 2030, I think with at least 70-80 million tons of commercial coal through commercial coal mining, we will get the coal, and that is a very big achievement. And out of that, there are very good coal mines where there is a very high grade coal is available. In that, the coking coal is also there. तो इसलिए इसके बारे में भी आप सोचिए, अगर आपका कुछ सजेशन है तो कृपया हमको दीजिए. I am open for suggestion because Indian consumption coal domestic coal. तो इसलिए हमको ये सोचना पड़ेगा कि how can we do the Indian coal because of the ash content and other things, and हमने ये भी किया है जैसे PLI स्कीम अदर सेक्टर में किया है, कोल गैसिफिकेशन में भी एक PLI स्कीम हमने अनाउंस किया है, उसमें प्राइवेट लोगों को भी लाने के लिए हमारा कोशिश चल रहा है. इसीलिए आपका सहयोग इस क्षेत्र में इसमें आगे बढ़ने के लिए मैं आपसे सहयोग चाहता हूँ. 75th year of India's independence. During the last week address to the nation from the Red Fort, Modi ji said, by 100 years of independence, we have to work with the vision of accomplishing what our freedom fighters dreamt of. Speaking on Panchpran here, urged that we need to now move with the renowned focus and resolve for the next 25 years. Next, our entrepreneurs and our industrialists. पहले एक जमाना था, आप सब जानते हो, इंडस्ट्री के बारे में बात करना, इंडस्ट्रियलिस्ट के बारे में बात करना, बिजनेसमैन के बात करना थोड़ा डर लगता था. कभी कभी ऐसा भी बोल जाता था कि ये गरीब के विरोधी है. अगर कुछ इंडस्ट्री अच्छा चले तो तब हमको रेवेन्यू मिलेगा, जब रेवेन्यू मिलेगा तब भी हम गरीब लोगों का कुछ सेवा कर सकते हैं. वी कैन मेक यूज ऑफ द रेवेन्यू in the service of poor people. That's why this government has full trust in our businessmen and industrialists, and you should see that आप अच्छा बिजनेस करें और देश का रेवेन्यू बढ़े और देश का गरीब को सेवा हम कर सके. यही हमारा स्पष्ट सोच है, इसमें हमको कोई कंफ्यूजन नहीं है. तो हमारा बड़ा बदलाव भी लाया है, लेकिन मैं ये भी कहना चाहता हूँ, हम कहते हैं रत्न गर्भा वसुंधरा. इस गर्भ में भूमाता के गर्भ में रत्न गर्भा, इस गर्भ में रत्न वगैरह सब कुछ है. तो हाउ टू ब्रिंग इट आउट एंड मेक द कंट्री टू प्रॉस्पर विदाउट हार्मिंग द एनवायरमेंट ऑल्सो. दिस इज a balancing act. So how to do it? That suggestion, that thinking you should have, and it is with the same vision we are working for the India's minerals and the metal industries transition towards 2047. In the last 8 years, we have laid the foundation of Atmanirbhar metal and mining industry. Several initiatives have been taken in consultation with the industry to boost the ease of doing the business in this sector. Understanding the need of to reform in the mining sector, our preparation began way back in 2015 with the amendment of MMDR Act. Introduction of auction only the regime to make the mineral blocks available to the industry, and we started the introduction of revenue sharing model. This has brought lot of changes. And पहले ये भी होता था कैप्टिव, नॉन कैप्टिव रिस्ट्रिक्शन, एंड यूज रिस्ट्रिक्शन, कोल में भी बहुत रिस्ट्रिक्शन था, इसके लिए उपयोग करो, इसके लिए उपयोग करो, रेड मोड, ये सब मोड. तो इससे हमारा जो नीचे लेवल का अधिकारी है वो भी इसका डिस्क्रिप्शन का बहुत उपयोग कर सकते हैं. इसलिए डिस्क्रिप्शन खत्म करने का एक बहुत बड़ा निर्णय हमारे दोनों मिनिस्ट्री में माननीय प्रधानमंत्री के मार्गदर्शन में लिया है. अभी कुछ एंड यूज का कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं है. Distinction between captive and the merchant mines, the amendment of MMDR Act mandated the auction of mineral rock without any end-use restriction. Existing captive mines were allowed to sell up to 50% the mineral produced after the meeting of the requirement of the linked plants. ये हम अदर माइंस में भी किया है, कोल में भी किया है. कोल में लास्ट टाइम हमारा कैप्टिव का जो 89 मिलियन टन प्रोडक्शन था, इस टाइम it is going to be nearly about 140 million tons of the coal also because of this policy. And new restrictions जो हमने हटाया है और स्टेट के लिए अलो किया है. मुझे ये भी कह रहा था जो अलॉटमेंट रूप से जो मिला है माइंस, उन लोगों को ये 50% वगैरह अलो मत करो, ये इशू बनेगा, ये सब करेगा. लेकिन after the due proper guidance of Honorable Prime Minister, we decided to bring this change, and this change is bringing 254 million tons of iron ore production has been done this time, and in 2014-15 it was at 100 odd, and many folds it has increased, and by that the industry, there is a lot of change, and also तो ये हमारा आई एम नॉट क्रिटिसाइजिंग PSUs, अगर PSU का जो प्रतिनिधि है आप गलत मत मानिए, कई PSUs ऐसे थे जो बहुत बड़े बड़े माइन लेके बैठते थे, 10 बरस 15 बरस 20 बरस। NMDC ऐसे परफॉर्मेंस अच्छा है, आप मेरे तरफ देख रहे हैं, मेरा मानना है नहीं NMDC काम नहीं करे, NMDC अच्छा किया है, लेकिन बहुत जो PSUs है देश में, एक कोल में हो या माइंस में, तो माइन लेके बैठे हुए थे, देश का संपत्ति है, लेकिन कुछ हो नहीं रहा है। इसीलिए we have decided that 5 to 6 years maximum, if they do not start, we are taking them back and we are auctioning. तो पहला में हमने किया PSU, स्टेट PSU बहुत लेके बैठे थे, तो मैंने कुछ राज्य को मुख्यमंत्री से, मंत्री से, उधर के अधिकारी से बात किया, अब क्यों रखे 10 बरस हो गया, 8 बरस हो गया, 15 बरस हो गया, वो बोले आपका अगर हम वापस करते हैं तो आप हमारा परफॉर्मेंस क्या गारंटी वापस देते हैं। मैंने बोला वो नहीं लोग वापस देते। Just day before yesterday I got 17 blocks back, and all those 17 blocks are very good blocks. I am putting further action now. So these are the things under the guidance of the Honorable Prime Minister we are bringing. In 2021, rules were amended along with law to allow the auction of mining lease of limestone, iron ore and bauxite blocks having deposit at G3 level of exploration instead of earlier mandated G2 level exploration. By this, अभी आज 3 महीने में 36 mine blocks have been auctioned and around 90 NITs have been issued. A record हो गया है। Further, auction for composite license for all mines allowed at G4 level and exploration instead of earlier mandated G3 level, and उसमें हमने एक अच्छा सा exit route भी रखा। Legacy issue of 10A2B में डिसीजन ही नहीं होता था, ऐसे ही पड़े होते, उसमें भी हमने चेंज करके हमने एक एटलीस्ट एक सिस्टम तो लाया है, allowing the transfer of vesting order rights of all clearances. This has enabled the seamless continuity of the mining operations even after the expiry or the termination of the एक लैंड को, एक पर्टिकुलर एरिया को हमने ये सब लाइसेंस लीज वगैरह देते थे, लाइसेंस देते हैं, परमिशन देते हैं, जो कुछ भी है, क्लियरेंसेस वगैरह, लेकिन एक बार एक्सपायर होता है तो फिर से सब अप्लाई करना पड़ेगा। फिर से 21 क्लियरेंसेस है, ये 21 क्लियरेंसेस लेने के लिए पोस्ट एडमिनिस्ट्रेटर घूमना पड़ता है, और इसमें नेचुरली जो उधर जो बैठे हुए लोग हैं वो क्या करते हैं, मेरे से आप जानते हैं, क्योंकि मैं आपसे बातचीत करके मैं सीखा हूँ, आप तो समस्या से आपसे जुड़ा रहे अबाउट पर्सनल एंड प्रैक्टिकल एक्सपीरियंस, इसलिए हमने ये किया है अगर एक्सपायरी होता है तो all clearances will be automatically transferred. So letter of intent and invitation of the CA will be legal है। अगर कोई किसी का मृत्यु होता है, कोई कार्य से बिजनेस से रिटायर होता है, तो लीगल को देने के लिए वो भी प्रॉब्लम है, वो भी हमने इंडोर करा, ऑटोमेटिक ट्रांसफर कर दिया। Prescribed timeline for the auction of the mine to operationalize so there is no delay. पहले कभी लेके बैठते थे, बाद कुछ होता नहीं था। और सिक्योरिटी बिल भी हमने बहुत कहा reduce bit of security for ease and entry forms from 0.05% of 50 crore, whichever is less for mining leases, and 50 lakhs for composite licenses at G4 level. Revise upper limit for the network to include the smaller players. Define average sale. We have defined the sale of price for newly explored minerals, potash, andesite, platinum, gold, so many new minerals. हमने इसके लिए ESP जो इशू था, ESP के कारण ऑप्शन में होता था, उसका हमने ESP अभी डिफाइन individual stakeholders and institutions to carve out their optional blocks and submit the proposal. अगर आपको लगता है इधर कुछ है, आप हमको बता दो, हम ऑप्शन में रहेंगे। तो ये भी हमने प्रावधान उसमें रखा है। Decriminalization, Prime Minister India की also in almost every alternate cabinet meeting हमको पूछते हैं कितना decriminalize किया है। हमारे जो इंडस्ट्रियलिस्ट है, हमारे जो लोग हैं, का बार-बार हमको डायरेक्शन मिलता है। In the mining sector, decriminalize 49 rules in the mineral concession rules and 24 rules in mineral conservation and development rules. ये सब हम decriminalize कर रहे हैं। To bring out the further increase in the mineral production, we coordinated with Ministry of Environment and Forest to provide relaxation in grant of environment clearance. Now, environment clearance for expansion of the mineral production up to 50% capacity is granted without fresh public consultation. 50% without public consultation. जैसे ऑलरेडी जिक्र किया, नेशनल मिनरल एक्सप्लोरेशन ट्रस्ट (NMDC) was created eventually made to autonomous body. हमने अभी पूरा autonomous body हमने बना दिया है। और इसमें क्या होता था, एक्सप्लोरेशन सिर्फ जो GSI करते थे वही होता था, वो बहुत कम मात्रा में होता था। हमने पूरा autonomous body बना के, if somebody is interested for the exploration, हम इस NMDC से हम पैसा देंगे और प्राइवेट लोग, क्योंकि हमारा जो अभी तक हमारा एक्सप्लोरेशन बहुत कम हुआ है। रिसेंटली आई वाज इन ऑस्ट्रेलिया फॉर दिस पर्पस टू अंडरस्टैंड द मिनरल सेक्टर ऑफ द ऑस्ट्रेलिया। उनके पास लगभग पूरा एरिया एक्सप्लोर है और एक कोर लाइब्रेरी करके बनाए हैं। आई वेंट देयर, मैंने पूछा, मैंने पहले थोड़ा पढ़ के लिख के गए थे। मैंने बोला इस एरिया में क्या है, उनके पास वो रिकॉर्ड था और उसका जो कोर था वो भी उधर था। ये कोर है, इसका एक रिकॉर्ड है। तो एक्सप्लोर करके रखा है। हमारा एक्सप्लोरेशन बहुत कम हुआ है, इसीलिए नेशनल मिनरल ट्रस्ट हमने ऑटोनोमस बॉडी बना के माननीय प्रधानमंत्री जी के मार्गदर्शन में प्राइवेट एंटरप्रेन्योर्स को एक्सप्लोरेशन में लगाने के लिए हमारा कोशिश चल रहा है। उसमें भी मैं आपका सहयोग मानता हूँ और आप जो एक्सप्लोर करते हैं उसके लिए NMDC से आप जो आपका एम्पावरमेंट 7 एम्पावरमेंट करके हमने नोटिफाई भी कर दिया है। जो एम्पावरमेंट के लिए बहुत ईजिली हम एम्पावरमेंट कर रहे हैं, उस एम्पावरमेंट के थ्रू जो कुछ भी एक्सप्लोरेशन करेगा वो एक्सप्लोरेशन के लिए हमने उनका तुरंत उनका पेमेंट वगैरह भी हो जाएगा। और टेक्नोलॉजी यूज करके विदाउट द कटिंग द ट्रीज हाउ वी कैन एक्सप्लोर, ये भी हम सोच रहे हैं। एनवायरमेंट एंड फॉरेस्ट मिनिस्ट्री से हमारा बात चल रहा है। क्षेत्र के बारे में 63,000 रुपीज इज कलेक्टेड, more than 63,000, almost 64,000 is collected, 30,000, more than 30,000 crores we have spent, and this amount is being spent जहाँ से हमारा महीने के कारण जो लोगों को तकलीफ होता है उनके कल्याण के लिए ये हम उपयोग कर रहे हैं। As a result of all these reforms, 190 blocks of various major minerals have been successfully auctioned in last 7 years, and in last 4 months we have auctioned more than 36 mines and 90 NITs have been issued. So in this last जो आता से ज़्यादा जो है more than 25,000 crores में उड़ीसा है तो रेवेन्यू भी मिला है। Due to ease of transfer consolidation in mining sector and जो इसके कारण हमारा प्रोडक्शन भी बढ़ रहा है, but I want to assure you all that this is, I am not a very contented man. We want to take further time because now our obvious geological potential is 30%. After we took over from 10%, we have brought it to 30%. We want to make it 100%. And exploration पूरा देश में जहाँ जहाँ पोटेंशियल है हम पूरा एक्सप्लोर करना चाहते हैं। इसके लिए मैं आपको सहयोग करता हूँ। MDR Act will further simplify the system. We are bringing out a further amendments, make it more attractive for the business, lay thrust on the mineral exploration and increase the mineral production in the country. We are transiting to reduce the imports by 2030 and becoming Atmanirbhar Bharat by 2047. To be future ready, we are exploring the sources of minerals like lithium, cobalt, nickel, rare earth elements, zinc and others. With this view, I visited the already told last month to secure the critical minerals who will help the country transition the key sources of the energy. जय अनुसंधान, जैसे माननीय प्रधानमंत्री जी ने कहा, ये अनुसंधान के बारे में हम सब सरकार और सरकार जो पॉलिसी बनाते हैं, विन विन सिचुएशन का जो कुछ भी आपका सोल्यूशन है, our government and my ministry we are quite open. जैसे ज्योतिरादित्य जी से आने के बाद ड्रोन में कैसे बदलाव आ गया, ये ड्रोन हम ज़्यादा उपयोग ही नहीं करते थे, लेकिन हम अभी माइनिंग में भी ड्रोन का इस्तेमाल करना शुरू कर दिया है. In the coming decades, the mineral and the metal industry will need to adopt sustainable ways, and in order to bring the sustainability, it is imperative for the Indian minerals and the metal sector to adopt the best practices available globally and increasing the productivity and the efficiency. I am confident that the deliberation over the next 2 days will be insightful for the policymakers to work toward the structural transformation of Indian mineral and metal landscape. With this, I convey my warm wishes to all participants. I congratulate FICCI and NMDC on organizing this conference as a part of Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav celebration. Let us strive toward building this sustainable, resilient and self-reliant minerals and metal sector in India. I once again wish you all the best. मुझे आप भेज दीजिए, मैं आपसे चर्चा करके हम कमिंग सेशन में और कुछ हम माइनिंग सेक्टर में थ्रू अमेंडमेंट ऑफ द लॉ वी वांट टू ब्रिंग सर्टेन चेंजेस. आई एक्सपेक्ट यू, आई रिक्वेस्ट यू, आपका जो कुछ भी इधर निर्णय होता है, चर्चा होता है, उसका नतीजा तो निकलता है, कृपया हमें ब्रीफ करें. हम आपके गाइडेंस के, आपके कोऑपरेशन के साथ हम देश के लिए भी अच्छा करेंगे, सेक्टर के लिए भी अच्छा करेंगे, यही आशा करते हुए बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद. नमस्कार.
ट्रांसपेरेंसी, अकाउंटेबिलिटी को लाने की तरफ, डिजिटाइजेशन, एम्प्लॉयमेंट को प्रमोट करने की तरफ और सभी को साथ लेकर चलने और देश के आर्थिक, सामाजिक और पर्यावरण समृद्धि के लिए देश को आत्मनिर्भर बनाने की तरफ और विश्व स्तर पर एक अग्रणी राष्ट्र बनाने की तरफ जो सोच है, जो मिशन है, हमें उसकी तरफ इंस्पायर करने के लिए बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद.
Good morning to all of you. I am immensely pleased to address on behalf of NMDC August gathering of dignitaries of minerals and metals industry. We are privileged to be among the esteemed community of representatives from the mining and metal fraternity that has gathered here today. Stakeholders from the domestic as well as the international community have come together to make this I would like to extend my sincere gratitude to Sri Pralhad, Joshi, Hon'ble Minister of Mines, Port and Parliamentary Affairs. I also extend my sincere gratitude to Sri Jyotiraditya, Honorable Minister of Civil Aviation and Steel Government of India. I would like to extend my sincere gratitude to Sri Sumit, NMDC and Sri Sanjiv, Mehta. We are very much thankful to you for taking time out and joining us to share your wisdom and guidance to the industry for furthering the growth of the Indian minerals and metal industry.
As a modern infrastructure, a robust logistic network, and a standard manufacturing base are among the major pillars for developing the economy in this sector. Steel is one of the most vital parts in this revolutionary wheel of law, which is produced from the mineral iron ore and its gravity. With highest ever overall performance in the key areas including exploration and turnover, NMDC is quite bullish on this growth, expansion and diversification plans for the decade ahead. As we all know, India is a mineral-rich country with a mining industry having great potential to contribute to the Indian economy I would also like to extend my gratitude to all the speakers who will enlighten us with their energetic views in the conference and delegates for their active participation and immense support to the event. We look forward to having a similar interaction and conversation in the future as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Shri Mohanty. And ladies and gentlemen, please join us now in expressing our gratitude and appreciation to our leaders as we present the individuals. Next, may I now request collectively